Hello. Now, I am going to do a thing that's sort of mimicking some of the videos you see on YouTube sometimes. You know when they find a really old car and it hasn't run for 30 years, and they make a video called Will It Run? Well, this is a video which is going to be called Will It Knit? Because this machine here came from my next door neighbour's sister. It has sat, to my certain knowledge, for at least 20, I think 25 years in her garage, unused. And when I opened it up and had a look at it, it had a mouse's nest in the case, complete with seed husks, droppings, and 2 dead mice. It was caked in a sort of layer of black goo that I think had probably come from fly droppings and so on. It was absolutely disgusting. So the reason why it looks so clean now is that I have literally taken it apart part by part and cleaned it, so there is not a speck of dirt on it. And this has genuinely never been used for the last 25 years. So this is absolutely the first time that anybody has attempted to knit on it. So I thought it might be fun for you to actually see the very, very first time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try ambitiously to cast on to all 200 needles. That's a nice ambitious thing to be doing. So we will see. And as I say, this isn't in any way sort of set up. I haven't tested it. I haven't tried it. Literally, this is the first time that that anybody has attempted to thread yarn through this thing. So let's have a look and see how we get on. So our, let's try that. Okay, so this might be slightly tedious whilst I do it, but our first job, oh, that's annoying. Look what I've done. I've set it all up the wrong way for these last few stitches. Never mind, let's set it up the right way. Okay, there we go, that's a bit better. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to knit a empty row across, do a bit of air knitting, see what happens. Now, eagle-eyed amongst you will have spotted that I've done it wrong there as well, and I'm really not going to put that right. I'm sorry. It might be a rubbish cast on, but I don't care. So, first attempt. Yarn in. First time this machine has had any yarn in it for at least 25 years. Let's see what happens. Well, it takes it and runs across. Now, I'm using sort of old scabby tools for this, principally because the nice tools are in the process of being cleaned up. So this is just what I've got lying around, just so that you know. Now I've got to hook it over all of these threads so that it hangs properly. Lovely. As I say, I'm not necessarily expecting this to be a brilliant cast on. That is sort of not the point. I'm even going to put the weaving brushes down, which you're supposed to do always, but I never do. Then I bring forwards all the rest of the needles, and we're going to see if we can persuade this to knit a few rows on tension, shall we say 6, and just see if it will not drop any needles or whatever. So the next one is going to be just a row like this. Okay, well, it's knitted. Okay, now I'm going to add some weights. I'm going to add some thoroughly old scabby weights, but they are weights nevertheless. I'll put one in the middle, see when I can get it to hang on. This is a very old weight. These two are slightly newer, albeit scabbier. Right, okay, let's knit a few rows and see what happens. Already we've got it hooked around a sinker here. That's not the machine, that's me failing to cast on nicely. But okay, now what I've got down here is in the middle here I've got a failure to hook up properly, and again that's my idiocy in casting on, not the machine. So what I'll do, I think I'll get a latch tool and I may well just latch that up. I haven't got a latch tool to hand, but I have got a spare needle. So I shall just latch that up backwards, and it will be an absolute travesty of a thing, but it will work. So the reason why I've got this needle here, by the way, is that the needle is dodgy, so I wouldn't necessarily expect it to work beautifully. I'll just do every other stitch just to get us going. Every other row, I mean, just to get us going. Okay, so just latch that up. As I say, this is purely for the basis of getting us going. There's no sort of sense of making this nice at all. Right, let's go. Okay, now we've lost all the sort of nastiness at the beginning. I think it just took a couple of rows for the needles to get going. Now what I'm going to do next, when this knitting comes off the machine, I'll pause the video, but I'm going to go through and check each stitch individually just to make sure that it's knitting properly. However, before I do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can persuade it to knit a 1x1 tuck stitch pattern across the entirety of the needles. I appreciate this is quite a major thing to ask of a machine which has not done this for years, but let's see if we can start by getting it to select all of the needles in 1x1 fashion. And it turns out that we can. So if I set it to do tuck stitch, let's see if it will in fact tuck for a few rows. Looking good so far. Seems to be. Whoops. I just knocked something off the table off camera. Okay, well that's good. One thing I noticed that it's not doing is automatically selecting the end stitches. There might be something dodgy with the cam, so I shall check that off camera. But it's looking like it's going. So what I'll do is I'll go back to normal knitting just to knit a couple more rows. I shall knit a couple of rows of that. And then of course what I shall be doing is checking this tuck stitch, literally stitch by stitch, to make sure that it works. Now then, the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to knit some fair isle, but I don't want to do it over the whole of the bed, because that will be very wasteful of yarn, and I know it's waste yarn, but even so. Actually, to be fair, no, well, why not? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a card, a random one. Let me see. I'll just need some completely random nonsense card that I can check that it works properly, preferably not the 1x1. So what I'll do is I'll go and find a random nonsense card and then I'll come back to you. Alrighty ho. Found in my collection of random nonsense. Triangles with one missing in the middle. So if I thread that up, with a bit of luck, I hope I will be able to knit some fair isle. And yeah, why not? We'll try it across the entirety of the board. Just before I do that, I'm just going to check my cams. So the end selection cams are selected. Okay, so I'm going to have to check that on the machine before I send it out. This is going out to a lady in Scotland who last had a machine that died. So let's have a look and see. Now what I'll do is I'll set up the row for my first row of fair isle knitting. And that's what it looks like. And then I'm going to set the card to carry on. I'm going to put it into fair isle mode. I'm going to get another colour of yarn, this slightly garish yellow colour, and let's see if we can persuade it to pick up. We can. Now the only problem is I've forgotten to get it. Oh no, I haven't. I've got to move forward. It's lovely. Now the only thing I would say about this that you ought to know is that this table has got an extremely slippery set of feet and it's on an extremely slippery floor. So when the tuff gets going, it tends to slide. But let's see what happens. Now that should be enough for me to see that it's working. So if you remember, when we looked at the card, it was a triangle with a stitch missing in the middle. And if I pull this up and show you, you should be able to see a triangle with a stitch missing in the middle. It will look different on the other side, of course, but that shows me that this is now working. Now this isn't a knit test finished. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that I need to do before I'm happy to send this machine out. But for the first time in 25 years, I'm going to say that's a win. It'll need a little bit of tweaking, but actually I'm pretty happy with that. So I hope you enjoyed that video, and I shall see you all another time.